Beggars have always been an integral part of RuneScape. Unless you play with your chat turned off, you've seen them at the GE, maybe at the duel arena, you might wonder, does anyone actually give these people money? And the answer is, of course they do. Otherwise, no one would do it. Let's go through some of the different types of beggars. Okay, so starting out right off the bat, we have the bot. This is hands down the worst type of beggar in every way. I'm talking about the bots that literally just stand in free-to-play and spam please money over and over again. Not only is the person who's using this bot too lazy to play the game, but their bot is also too lazy to play the game. This is not to be confused with the scam bots, which seem to actually work. I have a really hard time imagining anyone willingly giving money to an obvious bot when there are many actual players begging for gold just a few tiles away. Pretty much every aspect of the game can be outsourced to bots, but begging still needs that human touch. Of course, you have your typical low-level players, many of which are free-to-play, that spend hours bank standing and swarming around high-level players asking for gold. If you walk around with a T-bow or a shadow, you're sure to attract a few of these. These people have been around since the dawn of RuneScape. It sort of makes sense in free-to-play worlds, as I'd imagine begging is hands down the best money in the game over there. That's probably why almost all players in free-to-play that aren't bots are beggars. If you see someone in free-to-play that isn't begging you for gold, that's probably because he's tabbed out on Google Translate trying to figure out how to say money please in English. The thing is, you'll see low-level accounts stand at the GE and do this on member worlds as well. This makes a lot less sense because this person is either paying real money to beg or paid for a bond with gold. Most likely they begged their way out of free-to-play and now they're begging to keep their bond alive. It seems stupid, but this is RuneScape after all. Next, we have the guy who walks up to you with the absolute minimal setup for some mid-level boss, usually Vorkath or the Fight Caves, and tries to get people to give him gold out of sympathy. The psychology with this one would be that unlike the bot or the low-level guy, this guy clearly actually plays the game and is trying to improve himself, which would in theory make more players want to help him. So does it work? Well, it probably did at one point before everyone figured out that most people who beg like this are not being authentic at all. They're probably just on some sort of begging alt and measure begging in GP per hour at this point. I'm actually like 90% sure there are discords for people like this where they post the names of high level players that are susceptible to these sort of tactics. At least that's what a guy at the GE who was doing this was telling me. He might have been trolling, but who the fuck knows. I wouldn't even be surprised if there were bots using this method by now. It's just that overdone. Now let's talk about one that is somewhere in between a beggar and a scammer, and that is the guy who supposedly has a bunch of gold worth of members items, but needs you to buy a bond for him so he can get out of free-to-play. Of course, this comes with promises of selling some of those items and then giving you the bond back and then some. I like this one a lot because it's really similar to a lot of real-world scams. It just goes along with the basic idea that someone has a lot of money, but in order to access that money, they need you to give him a little money, and then once you do that, he'll repay you by giving you more than you gave him. In this case, that would be the bond, but of course, you're probably not going to get anything back if you participate in one of these scams. At this point, I would just consider it begging, because I think everyone would know if you give this guy a bond, you're really not going to see anything in return, so you're kind of just doing it out of the goodness of your heart. The thing is, since about 6 months ago, you can actually sell members items on free-to-play worlds, making this whole scam/beg completely obsolete, although people will still try it because this is RuneScape, and of course people probably still fall for it. One of my very favorite types of beggars is the guy who just got scammed, allegedly, and to be fair, he very well might have, but really who gives a shit, that's his problem. It's every man for himself in OSRS, and he should have known this. This is the guy that will bring that true desperation to the table, and because of the desperation, it won't work and no one will give him any gold. My favorite part of this one is within 10 minutes of getting scammed and failing to beg for any money, this guy will actually start trying to scam other people to get his money back. This almost definitely won't work either because his scam won't be well thought out at all, not to mention most people around him just saw the entire situation situation go down. Next on the list we have the really angry beggar. I've seen this actually work, and it shouldn't because this guy is really annoying. It'll be someone at the GE, could be any level, furiously complaining about how hard it is to make money in this game, and how he can't do any content because he doesn't have money for gear, and how everyone else who has gear bought it all with bonds or real world trade. This guy will usually have a really short fuse and blow up on anyone at a moment's notice. I'd imagine they're either on the brink of tears in real life or laughing their ass off, probably both. This guy will likely get muted in less than an hour, but if not, he might actually make some gold because sometimes it's pretty funny. Last but definitely not least, we have the maxed geared beggar. This one isn't the most common, but you will see it and they do make money. Considering they're already wearing billions of gold worth of gear, they probably don't need this money at all, but I believe they do this for the love of the game. For them, it's not about making 1 mil, it's about taking 1 mil away from someone who really needs it. And of course, the people who give them money usually regret it. That's because for some reason people think that if they give money to a guy with a T-bow, he's gonna give them something back. And he probably won't, but people still fall for this anyway. Therefore, as it turns out, the most effective begging strategy is just to be rich to begin with. Who would have guessed? So how do you deal with beggars? You might think you should ignore them. That's not what you do. You need to handle them with absolute rage and aggression. Picture every single person that's pissed you off in your entire life and project that onto this guy, because those people aren't here, but this beggar is right in front of you. You want to throw every possible insult at this guy that is not going to get you permanently muted. You are better than him at RuneScape, and that means you are smarter than him. Make sure he's painfully aware of this fact. Simply not giving the guy money isn't nearly enough. You want him to never log back into this game. The best part about all this is you'll be perceived as having the moral high ground in this argument because everyone hates beggars anyway. If people join in, they'll most likely take your side. Of course, for whatever reason, if you start getting singled out, you're gonna log out immediately, but this isn't gonna happen if you play your cards right. When this beggar quits the game, you can rest easy. Until then, you have work to do.